Okay, so the Raiders have made 3 transactions since my last video. Andre James, Darius Philon, and Matt Dickerson. So James was a re-signing, and the other 2 were not. Those were signings from different teams, but let's get into it. So Andre James, I talked about him before in one of my previous videos with free agency when we signed Nick Martin. But he is a center, and obviously we lost. Unfortunately, we lost Rodney Hudson, who had been a veteran. He was a really good all-pro center. So this is a bit of a downgrade, but we re-signed him because, and I bet he's happy because he's getting a lot more money than he probably would. But it's a 3-year contract worth $12.5 million. He gets $6 million guaranteed. He had 1 year left, so it's an extension. So he's cashing in, definitely, considering the fact that that Hudson left. And obviously they have Nick Martin, so he'll probably be competing for that spot, but likely Andre James will be starter. I don't think they're going to give that position to Nick Martin right away, at least. And obviously they traded Hudson for and a 7th round pick to Arizona Cardinals for a 3rd round pick. Yeah, so it's a little bit unfortunate, but I guess it's good that we extended this guy. But you know, obviously we have Nick Martin, like I said, so it's going to be a little bit of a battle between them. But I think the Raiders believe in James. He's a pretty decent center, and he's definitely the favorite to snap the car next year. So we'll see how effective he can be. So that's the first one. 3-year extension for him, Andre James at center. All right, so now we move on to our next signing, which is Matt Dickerson from the Tennessee Titans. He's a defensive lineman, and I mean, I think this is a pretty good signing because if you look at our defense last year, there was all sorts of problems with it. But a main issue was our defensive line, lack of discipline, you know, injuries, lack of experience. They had a lot of young guys. They're not bad. I mean, Max Crosby's a good player, for example, but he's young. So I think it's good to have some experience. So they signed Matt Dickerson. He's 6'5", 292 pounds from the Tennessee Titans. He spent his first 3 years with them, so 2018 through 2020. And he was an undrafted free agent. So he played in 18, he had 18 appearances. He had 15 tackles, and he's also played in 4 postseason games, which is important because really barely any Raiders players have played in playoff games because the Raiders, you know, don't make the playoffs. So I think that's good. It adds some depth, it adds some experience, so that's good. Last year he played a lot more games than usual. He had 10 games and a total of 10 tackles and 1 quarterback pressure. So I mean, statistically he isn't the best player, but I think it's good for experience. And yeah, so I guess that's a decent signing. He's from California, went to UCLA, and played really good there. So I think that's a pretty decent signing. I'm not saying it's a great, you know, it's not as good as getting Yannick Ngakoue, who we got, you know, just last week or whatever, but it's still pretty good. So I'll take it for sure. And he's a defensive end. That's his actual position. So, you know, good to get him, I guess. Now we move on to our final signing for the Raiders, and that is Darius Philon. And he's an interesting one because, I mean, you yourself can decide, is this a good thing or a bad thing? He hasn't played in the NFL in 2 years. Is that good or bad? Because it could be good because he's well rested. He's probably not going to have, you know, any problems with injuries or anything. But it also could be bad because he, you know, loses that experience. That could be bad or good. Maurice Hurst was the only defensive tackle with starting experience. You know, the Raiders needed a guy like this. So I think this is definitely good. But, I mean, I guess they've had pretty good free agency signing for defense. Solomon Thomas, Quentin Jefferson, Jonathan Hankins, Ngakoue, all these guys. But pretty decent signing. This guy has played for multiple teams. He has played 54 games and, you know, 9.5 sacks in his career. 6'1", 286 pounds. He's from Alabama originally. He's a defensive tackle. Pretty good player. I mean, it's hard to tell, though, like I said, because he hasn't played in the NFL. He didn't play this year, and he didn't play last year, so we don't really exactly know how good or bad he is. But, I mean, I guess we'll take it. And obviously, Gus Bradley will like having these guys, too, so that'll be good. And he also had signed a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Cardinals, but he was arrested, actually. Some sort of assault charges, so that's not good. But he's trying to find his way back into the NFL. So that's pretty much it for the Raiders. Let me know your thoughts on these signings. 3 of them total. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Go Raiders.